The Nasdaq filled the gap finally, but there's some more going on here. Last week, we've got the short-term sell signal with the 10 crossing the 22 to the downside. If you've been watching these videos, we talked about this. It's also in the newsletter, link in description. Now, in the trading community earlier in the last week, we mentioned the fact that we hit an intermediate sell signal, and that was breaking the 55. And since then, we're down about $10 in the Qs. Now, we also mentioned last week that the MACD cross is setting to get up under the zero line. So we've been watching this since last week, and obviously you can see it's starting to break the zero line right now. Subscribe to this channel, click all notifications. We post a lot of alerts and updates in the community tab, as well as frequent videos. So you're not going to see those unless you are subscribed to the channel. So the question is, what do we do now? What happens now? And the bottom line is we need to hold this 268.56. If we don't hold this level in here, then we're going to have some significant issues. And most likely we're going to roll back to the 254.69. Names like Amazon are just completely breaking down. From a trading perspective, this is not the worst thing in the world because you just simply put on short positions or you do options, you buy puts. And what we're doing in the trading community is at the money weekly puts because the volatility that's going on right now, and it's working quite nicely. But when you start seeing these kinds of breaks, you really do not want to be trying to stand in front of these and try to catch them. Just let them fall, see where they wind up, and go from there. This is the kind of behavior that stocks are exhibiting. They're breaking out of these 15-minute orbs. People are getting excited and they're getting into them. We actually put a short position in again and bought puts on Tesla and did quite nicely with it. You can see this flag. And what I would suggest to you is start looking for these patterns. These patterns are absolutely everywhere. And once they start breaking, that's pretty much it. Patterns repeat themselves because they are human behavior, right? Just as wicks are price rejection. And when you finally break those, you have a new trend. It's exactly what happened here. And this worked out very nicely. You can see the reversal right off the bottom and then the rally back up. We had Tesla in the top 10. Make sure that you watch that video. I'll link it at the end here. I would get up to speed because we're just starting in the week and there's a lot of actionable ideas in there. But you can just see this break clearly. I mean, we can sit here all day long and talk about VWAP and this line and that line, but just to make it really simple, perfect head and shoulders, perfect. Here's your weekly, here's your break. This is not the end, this is the beginning. This is how it starts. So can we bounce back up? Absolutely. But this has tremendous issues now. A bounce up through this range would not surprise me at all. Pattern identification is crucial. Before you start using indicators, just understanding these patterns will save you a lot of heartache. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder. As much as I wanted it to break this DTL, downward trend line, Apple just never did. And then we have the break of the neckline, but then at the same time, we now have confirmation of that break. Could this trade up? Yes. And most of the time, these names trade back up and then roll back down, and then we get that dreaded 8. But I want to be really clear about this. There is nothing redeeming looking at this. I can't expect that we're going to have another move just off that bottom. It just doesn't look like that's in the cards. Anything can always happen, but when you start seeing cracks like this, you really need to pay attention. The better you get at pattern identification, the easier life will get. For example, see this right here? Apple, 1, 2, 3. It's a standard 3-bar pattern that looks like it's not because you have this wick, but we know wicks are price rejection. So when we broke here, this was a perfect spot for us to put on a short, put the short on right in this area, left the short on, had puts on it as well, and did fairly well with it. We started to see this bottom, and here's another really quick tip, and make sure you pay attention to this. When you're shorting a leading stock, you always want to know where that bottom is, and then you want to make sure that you're following the index. So in other words, the index here at the time hit a low. At that particular time, Apple did not hit a low. Matter of fact, Apple was doing the exact opposite. Apple was breaking out above a doji. So this was a pretty clear indication that we could turn. It was a great spot for us to cover that trade. And that was all predicated not so much on this little pattern, which was pretty clear, but also on the fact that we're taking out lows at the time on the underlying index, the S&P, and the stock is grinding higher. Most of these trades I'm showing you, you can look out longer term. But right now, based upon the volatility of the market, closed on Friday going into the holiday, we're just taking a very short-term approach to the market. But there are several names out there that just look like they're going to absolutely crack. Now, KMX was one that was in the trading community newsletter, and you can see right here, it was in today's, and you can just see that was it. As soon as you broke here, this was your signal, this was your break, and it was on. People in the trading community did this one today. You have earnings coming up December 22nd. How'd last earnings go? So our goal here, if we're a trader, is to get up and in this position so much, at least up 10% in the position, or at least pull out enough money on the put side that we might be able to stay in for something like this. And maybe we can take advantage of it and see a move where you go from 85 and wind up closing the next day at 65. The goal is not to speculate on these moves the day of, but to get in them ahead of time. And that is called planning. SQQ, now this trade is not over. We got in this at 48.5 right off that break. And right now you are getting an intermediate buy signal by hitting that 55 SMA. But I am in this DTL, which is a downward trend line. I do have a resistance point right in here. I refer to these as kill zones. It's not rocket science. You can see why, right? But if I flip here, that's a nice gap that I could fill in. And that is very feasible to fill in that gap. MACD is best used for sediment. In other words, I don't really trade off that particular signal, but when you start seeing these curls and action at the zero line, pay attention for a longer term move. And that's exactly what's happening in here. See how we're setting up? See how this is pushing? Okay. And I want to just be really clear about something. All these moving averages, all these indicators, everything's changing because of what's going on macro. And if you don't understand that, you need to start getting involved in that and start really understanding the nuances and why what is happening is happening. It's very important. I can do a video on it. It's not just about where's the VWAP, where's the neck break. It's why are they still selling the stock? MDGL would be remiss in not talking about it. When you just broke out, it just kept going. For me, looking at that first 15-minute bar, that's not really appealing to me. 3-bar pattern, 1, 2, 3, breaks, and then it goes. Maybe you scalp it, maybe you don't, but at least you weren't getting hurt in here. As it breaks out again, you roll back down. What you should be putting in your charts, you need to be looking at VWAP right now and how stocks are responding to that. You can see how we held VWAP right in there. If you were not in this, you just wait for it to pop above VWAP, use underneath this as a stop. Even if you got stopped out again, you can get back in right here, and then the stock winds up closing at the high of the day. These kinds of moves, I'm not so sure that we're going to see that kind of follow through that we want to. Usually you've been seeing some profit taking on these kinds of moves. If we take a look at AXSM, you had a great day and then you have not really come out of that day since. And I would imagine that you're going to see something very similar to that here. We just don't know what we're going to get yet. And right now we're still wrestling with this or one-day bar. Micron Technology, they have earnings this week. Now, this is setting up, again, here is a clean. I mean, it doesn't get much cleaner as far as a resistance point. Open that level up and take a look at it, and you can see the lower lows, and you just couldn't break. And all you did was really undercut right here, and now you're setting up to rally. Now, the issue with this particular pattern is that you're really setting up something a little more nefarious. There's our undercut. Should we get above the 39 level, we will have a confirmed double bottom. And there's very little to stop this until we get up to this 4660 level. This is all happening when Micron's coming out with earnings this week. NVIDIA really had a very tough time finding any footing today. We always say it can't be this simple. Well, maybe it's going to be this simple in the 200-day reject. And that's exactly what's happened. Reminder, if you have a death cross, when you have a death cross, the 200-day becomes resistance. When you have a golden cross, it becomes support. That's exactly what's transpired here. We had the potential to go and push. Wednesday was not our issue. Our issue was Thursday with Lagarde. And again, I may do a whole video on what exactly transpired here. With the SPY, we can clearly see the break of the 55 SMA. We can see the MACD crossing the zero line. We can see the cross here giving us our first sign. Now today, again, very simple setup. Your opens here, you're unable to even get above your opening price. So this already tells you that you have weakness. Then you're trying to get through the close. Can't get through the close, reversal. So now you basically have a bullish engulfing that's encapsulated, and then you fail. You fail perfectly, and you actually they even pop you over to lure people in. Breaks down 1, 2, 3, snaps, that's it, and it was on. So this is actually where we shorted the SPY and then also bought puts on the SPY. And then we're starting with this as our stop. Now, this was something that I shorted the index itself and also bought puts. And the puts that we bought were actually up over 100% today. I did read all your comments. I am going to start showing in a trading journal some of these trades so that you can see what was done, why it was done, when it was done, and what we were anticipating so that you can possibly implement them themselves. But I'm putting the trades into a trading journal so that it's easier for me to explain and for you to actually see the real-time trades. So if you have comments on that, please let me know. I'm going to try a different couple formats, so any input that you have is greatly appreciated. The trading community is on waitlist to the end of the year so that we can stay focused. If you are interested, please put your name up here in the waitlist. And then when a spot opens, you will get an email. All right, everybody, have a great evening.